The Pack's D had a TD. There were some more RB injuries. Lenny netted 4. OBJ finally caught another score, and Russ was cooking pee-pee. Welcome to the Mish Pone. Alright everybody, welcome in. I decided to get a little cozy today, with it just being past Thanksgiving. But yeah, if OBJ wouldn't have caught that one touchdown, I would have beaten Colin. But we'll get into that in just a little bit. But before anything, we've got the most important part of the show, probably. We've got a little high life action, so let's crack this bad boy, and we'll get into it. Alright, no business or transactions, obviously. The trade deadline has passed. I'm sure in the coming weeks I will do I don't know if I'll do one whole episode or break it up between a couple different episodes, but I'll go through and look at all of the trades that occurred and see how they did with the perspective of the last 2-3 months. So, yeah, let's, I guess, get into this first matchup, me versus Colin. I felt really, really good going into the week. And those noon games really kind of set me back a bit. Chris Godwin did not obviously perform as well as I wanted him to. Only 3.7 points. And I just, overall, my team way underperformed compared to what I thought it would do. And, Colin had some pretty solid performances out there. Especially the aforementioned Odell Beckham Jr. scoring that long touchdown, which really hurt. Obviously, it wasn't good for the Packers, but also really not good from a fantasy team. Had a little hope going into Monday night, but with about 5 minutes left in that game, Colin got the victory. He ended up beating me 106.64 to 103.46, and that wasn't even the closest matchup of the week. And 25% of people picked that one correct. And this week, I noticed there were a lot less people picking. We only had, I think, 4 people submit picks this week. Obviously, over the holiday weekend, not as many people care about fantasy football. But yeah, 25% of people got that one wrong, or right. Moving us on to Michael versus Brian, another very close matchup. There were a lot of matchups where both teams were right around 100 points, and this is another one of them. I don't think it's really close. I'm not very good at math, but this one, it seems like it's just about the same amount of closeness. I didn't obviously follow this game as closely as my game, but it also did come down to Monday Night Football. Looking at the box score, Antonio Gibson needed to score about 25 points-ish for Michael to get the dub here, but only got about 23. So Brian got the victory, 102.04 to 99.72. And 75% of people got that one correct. Moving us on to Bruce versus Caleb. One of the teams was right around 100. The other one was right around 70. And we'll just get into this one. Not very close. I don't think it was the biggest blowout of the week, but it was definitely up there. Bruce won 108.7 to 69.58. And 25% of people got that one correct. Moving us on to T-Corn versus Adam. Again, this one was both teams right around 100 points. But besides the last one, Caleb and Bruce, this one was the most spread out in terms of points. Again, came down to Monday night with Taylor Heineke on Adam's side. And he ended up getting the loss here, 106.52 to 99.62, and he made the comment that Russ would have gotten him the win, which, looking at it, he would have, so if only. But 100% of people got that one correct. Moving us on to Fiala versus Abby. This one was definitely the biggest blowout of the week, about a difference of 90 points. Abby just freaking went off. Leonard Fournette had that 4 touchdowns, as I mentioned at the top, and then she had 2 receivers right around 20 points each, and just all over good performance from Abby's team. Abby obviously got the victory here, 173.1 to 85.24, and only 75% of people got that one correct. I say only because, I would have expected everybody to get that one correct, but 75% of people got that one correct. Moving us on to Sam versus State Farm. This one was also not all that close. Decent score by one of the teams. Spoiler alert, that team is Sam, and not that big of a not that close of a matchup. Difference of about 30 points. Sam got the victory, 122.3 to 92.7, and 50% of people got that one correct. Moving us on to the final matchup, we've got Lincoln versus Derek. Another pretty close matchup. This one was pretty decently high scoring as well. If you average the two scores out, minus Abby's astronomically high number. And this one was also very close, and it did not come... Actually, did come down on Monday night with DK Metcalf, right? Yeah, DK did not do anything. 2.3 points out of him, only one reception for 13 yards, so you'd want more from him, obviously. Derek ended up getting the victory, 123.4 to 115.6, and 25% of people got that one correct. State led the week again with 6 points, leads obviously for total with 62, and then he has the best average of 5.6. So that was last week's matchups. Moving us on to the power rankings. First up at 14, we've got State Farm. Lost a not super close matchup to Sam. You did score a decent amount of points. Not really, 92, which is, I guess, higher than some teams, but, still not the best. You have an opponent coming up that is coming off a pretty solid victory. Right around the same amount of points as you, but I think they're a bit better, so we'll see how well you can fare in that matchup. Moving us on to number 13, we've got Sam. You just beat Caleb, and you had State, and you had a pretty good amount of points on that matchup. We'll see if you can continue to score that in your next matchup against an opponent that is a bit tougher than the worst team in the league. So that is Sam at 13. That'll move us on to number 12. We've got Adam. You had a pretty close loss there to T-Corn. Definitely a matchup you could have won. You even pointed that out yourself. Going up against an opponent that is probably right around the same area as yourself. A bit better, but definitely going to be an interesting matchup, I think. So that is Adam at number 12. Number 11, we've got Michael. Lost to Brian this past week. Brian did a pretty good job of scoring points. A little bit better than you, but a couple more plays would have gone your way, and you easily probably could have had that victory. This upcoming week, you've got a matchup against a pretty solid team, so you're definitely going to need everything out of your players. So we'll see if you can get that. So that is Michael at number 11. Number 10, we've got Fiala. Pretty bad performance from yourself, amplified only by the great performance of Abby, your opponent this past week. Obviously not a great performance, as I just said. See if you can get that turned around for yourself. And this is the week to do it. Not a great opponent that you're facing this week, so see if you can rebound and get yourself another victory. Moving us on to number 9, we've got Brian. Pretty solid performance, Pat, last week. Just barely eked out a victory over Michael, I believe it was. Yep, over Michael. And, gonna have some bye issues, I believe, this week, if I'm remembering your roster correctly. So we'll see how well you can combat that in a week where you're definitely going to need a lot of good performances because your opponent is a pretty good one. So that is Brian at number 8. Brian at 9. Moving us on to number 8, we've got Derek. Pretty solid performance last week, knocking Lincoln down a peg. If only I could have won, and I'd be in first place for the men's division. But nonetheless, still solid performance there from Derek. This upcoming week, you've got yourself a matchup that is against a team that is not super great. compared to yourself and most other teams in the league, to be frank. And so we'll see if you can get yourself a pretty solid next victory here this upcoming week. Moving us on to number 7, we've got Mr. Colin. You know, you had a pretty solid performance. Some guys really scoring their projections, I would say, getting the victory over me. This next week, you do have an opponent that you could probably beat. Maybe not quite as, or maybe a bit of a different spread there. Maybe, I don't know what I'm really saying, but that is Colin at number 7. Moving us on to number 6, we've got Bruce. A pretty solid victory for you this past week against a higher ranked Caleb, and compiled that with my loss, moving yourself one step closer to taking over that second seed in the men's division. Still hold on to it by a solid 2 games, I believe, but that's nonetheless. So yeah, still solid team, and we'll see if you can keep it going this next week. Caleb at number 5 lost to Bruce this past week. It was not all that close of a matchup. In fact, you scored the lowest points on the week, so we'll see how well you can turn this thing around and get yourself another victory. Moving us on to number 4, I've got myself. I was really high on myself last week, as you could all probably tell, and kind of got knocked back down to reality this past week. But I do still think I have one of the better teams in the league. I'm thinking I can get a good bounce back victory this upcoming week and re-establish a winning streak. So that is me at number 4. Number 3, we've got Abby. I don't think you've left the top 5 in like 2 months, so you're up there with one of the most consistent and obviously talented fantasy teams in this league. Scored the most points on the week this past week, and forgot to mention this earlier, but congrats, you got yourself another beer. That's maybe your 2nd or 3rd on the season. So congrats. This upcoming week, I don't imagine you having too tough of a time with your matchup, as your opponent is definitely not quite as good as yourself, but you know, it's fantasy and anything could happen. Moving us on to number 2, we've got Lincoln. Tough loss for you this past week. You scored a decent amount of points, but was not enough to defeat the powerful Derek. Still obviously one of the better teams in the league, record-wise and I guess power ranking-wise, since you're number 2. So we'll see if you can bounce back this next week and get yourself another victory. Moving us on to number 1, we've got, of course, T-Corn, best record in the league. Another victory last week, although close one against a not-so-great team. But all of that said, you are obviously one of the best teams, if not the best team, in the league. And we'll see if you can keep your winning streak alive and strong in this next week against a opponent that produced a solid last week, but we'll see if they can do it again this week. So that is T-Corn at number 1. Alrighty, now it's time to get into the matchup previews. First up, me versus Bruce. The Packers are on bye, which means Devontae and A.J. Dillon are on bye this week, as well as Cam Newton. Probably wouldn't have started him, but, you know, whatever. And actually, I did submit a waiver claim for Taysom Hill, and this will probably come out after, well, it definitely will come out after waivers have run, so you guys will know if I got him. I currently don't know at the time, but, you know, Cam Newton's been kind of a disappointment this last couple weeks. And then on Bruce's side, he does not have any players on bye. However, I will still be picking myself to win here. Very important matchup in terms of the standings for them boys. And, you know, I will be locking myself in for this victory. Did that last week, did not work out super great, but we'll see if it works this week. So that is me versus Bruce. Moving us on to Sam versus Fiala. You do have Fiala, you have your defense on a bye, which isn't too hard to fill in. And then coming back, you've got Tyreek Hill. So you obviously will throw him in your lineup. I don't know who you'll take out, though. You got, I guess you'll probably take out Brandon Ayuk. But with all that said, that's Fiala's side. Over on Sam's side, you got Donovan Peoples-Jones on a bye, but I don't know if you would have been starting him anyways. And then the Packers defense. So looking at all of that, I will be picking Fiala as my victor in this matchup. I think he's got the right pieces, and his guys are going to score more than they're projected. So that is this matchup. Moving us on to Michael versus Abby. Abby is getting Clyde Edwards-Helaire back from bye. In fact, she never really had him, as she traded for him after his matchup when he was on State's team, but then he went to the bye week. So this is your first week with him in your lineup. You do have Randall Cobb, Aaron Jones, and Dontrell Hilliard on a bye as well. A couple injuries between some of those guys. But over on Michael's side, though, we have no buys. However, Dalvin Cook is got a boo-boo and is not looking super great to play this week. Luckily, you do have Alexander Madison on your bench, who I assume you'll just be plugging him in place of Dalvin. But this one was pretty straightforward for me. Abby's just been rolling, and Michael not so much. So Abby will be my pick for this matchup. Moving us on to State versus Colin. Colin, just looking at it, has Nick Chubb on a bye and Austin Hooper. And then on his bench, he's got A.J. Brown on IR, but also on bye. And then Dante Foreman on a bye. And on State's side of the ball, we've got DJ Moore on a bye. And that's it. So I'm going to be picking State Farm for this matchup as my upset pick. It's going to be probably a pretty close matchup, but the injuries over on Colin's side compared with, with the buys and just some of the players over on State's side, I think State could get the surprising upset victory in that matchup. Moving us on to T-Corn versus Brian. T-Corn has Christian McCaffrey not only on bye, but IR, so he's going to have to hopefully find a replacement. And then you've got Nick Westbrook-Akeen on a bye, and then Kareem Hunt also on a bye. So you will be hopefully getting CeeDee Lamb back into your lineup, and maybe even DeAndre Hopkins, and then Travis Kelce's coming off bye. So you've got a lot of powerhouses coming back from bye/injury. On Brian's side, Aaron Rodgers is on bye, and Tyrell Williams also on bye on your bench. Probably wouldn't have played him anyway, but all of that said, I do think T-Corn's going to get a victory here in this matchup. Just been playing some really good ball lately, and this one looks like another one he can definitely get a victory in. So T-Corn for the win on that matchup. Moving us on to Derek versus Adam. This one probably will be a pretty close matchup. It looks like Jarvis Landry over on Adam's side of the ball will be on bye, and that's about it for Adam. Over on Derek's side, you got your Cleveland Brown defense and Marquez Valdez-Scantling on a bye. But I will be picking Derek in this matchup. I do think he's got a better team, and his guys' ceilings are higher than those of Adam's players. So, Derek in this matchup. Moving us on to the final matchup of the week, we've got Lincoln versus Caleb. No buys except for your defense, Caleb or Lincoln, the Titans. But you do have Houston plugged in right now, but they're playing Indy, and I'm not sure if that's such a good idea. So I'm sure you'll pick up a new defense. And then over on Caleb's side, you're getting some guys back from bye. All of those Arizona Cardinals, Christian Kirk, James Conner, and AJ Green. I'm sure I'll be plugging at least James Conner back into your lineup. I will be picking Lincoln, however, for this matchup. You were almost my lock pick for this one, but I decided to roll with good old Joey here. So that is the matchups. A quick sip, and we'll finish this thing. Alrighty. We've got some snow on the ground, which is great. Maybe not for you, Fiala, as you live in Florida, but up here in Wisconsin, we've got some snow, and it's quite enjoyable. A bit slippery when wet / frozen, which is a bit of a dangerous situation, especially when you have a dog that's pulling you at Lily. So, yeah, that'll just about do it. I hope you guys all have a fantastic week and had a fantastic Thanksgiving. And with that, thank you, and thank you. Alrighty. As you can see, we've got some Christmas decorations up here in the corner that we had to throw in here, as Lily would probably destroy them if they were left out, and she got her dirty little paws on them. So, but they're in here, so a bit less floor space, but definitely enough room to flip this can on Colin. I'm very still upset that you beat me. So, Colin, this one's for you. Oh, goodness. Solid thud, but not a landing, so. I'll get one of you next week.
When you're in the mood for something smooth and hot and thick, I know something that will surely do the trick. If you think I'm talking oatmeal, don't be a fool. Have you heard this thing called chowder? It's really cool. Open wide, it's time for chowder. Chunky soup with cream and powder. Nothing's ever made me prouder than your thick, nasty chowder. Jambalaya's not a chowder. Lobster biscuit, that a chowder? Who gives a shit? Hey, it louder, louder,
Chowder!
louder.
Chowder!
Once you
Everybody
get that
loves
first
chowder.
spoonful and put it in your face, you'll be feeling like you're up in space. I don't know what more to tell you, there's nothing else to say. So get out there, there's no time to spare. Eat chowder every day. Open wide, it's time for chowder. Chunky soup with cream and powder. Nothing's ever made me prouder than your thick, nasty chowder. Jambalaya's not a chowder. Lobster biscuits, that a chowder? Who gives a shit? Just say it louder, louder,
Chowder!
louder.
We got clam.
Chowder.
We got seafood.
Chowder.
We got chicken.
Chowder.
We got corn.
Chowder.
All these possibilities are the bee's knees, like a shopping spree when everything's free. From little flea to the whole sea, chowder's for everyone, including me. I'd always pick to have a lick. If I kicked it, it would stick to the walls and so thick like my dick you can suck it, but not through a straw. I'm an outlaw. Even the birds want to taste. Caw caw. And my dog's offering a paw, but there's none left for Grandpa.
Man, I tell ya, chowder, it's so good.
Yeah, it's always been there for me, through thick and thin.
Oh man, I see what you did there. Sometimes I just love to rub it all over me. Good chowder, yeah.
Yeah.
Open wide, it's time for chowder. Chunky soup with cream and powder. Nothing's ever made me prouder than your thick, nasty chowder. Jambalaya's not a chowder. Lobster biscuits, that a chowder? Who gives a shit? Just say it louder, louder,
Chowder!
louder.
Chowder!
Everybody loves chowder.